Ohio State's recruiting machine keeps rolling, and the Buckeyes may have just found their next rising star.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a bonus episode of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And during this Buckeye Blitz, we'll discuss the pros and cons of recruiting really young talent. But first, Carlos Lockland has wasted no time proving to everyone he is an elite recruiter and he knows how to lead an elite running back room. Currently on Carlos Lockland's to-do list is trying to find the right running backs to join the Buckeyes 2026 recruiting class, the 2027 recruiting class, and beyond. And I say beyond because Carlos Lockland just extended an offer to a running back in the class of 2029, Makai Buchanan, standing at about 6 foot, at about 180 pounds. He is a guy that when you watch him play football, it's clear that he is not your typical eighth grader. He was a member and he played in the Under Armour Next Generation eighth grade All-American game. And in that game, it didn't take long for me to see in the few clips I saw, he's different. And if you have offers from Ohio State and other power schools in Arizona and Arizona State, Hawaii, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, trust me, that means there's a lot of other schools around the country that are trying to do what Ohio State's trying to do. Get ahead of the game. Be the first there, because Makai Buchanan, he's an eighth grader, and people that know how to project these things, they believe he can be that dude when he gets in college. The tough thing is he's in eighth grade. The guys he's going against are his peers. And so while he is a very young guy, he is dominating his peers. So as he gets to be a freshman and sophomore and junior, the expectation is going to be that he continues to dominate his peers, which is huge. If you're able to dominate your peers at that level and you're able to have some of the skill set that he has, even as an eighth grader, it's a no-brainer that Locklyn, he's on Lockland's radar, and Locklyn is like, I need that guy. I know he's young. I know that it's very, very rare for you to offer a kid in eighth grade. A lot of times that goes to, it's quarterbacks or maybe a linebacker or a DN that just wows people in camps, and they say, oh, no, you are a guy that we want. Well, we can't have you yet. We got to wait 4 or 5 years, but just wait. Just you wait your turn. We're going to pursue you so hard that you're going to be compelled to just come play for us. Locklyn is a guy that if I see his name next to a guy that's young and that's trying to get recruited, I'm inclined to think that guy's a dude. Now, I don't always think that when an Ohio State coach is recruiting somebody. I mean, it is Ohio State, and so if you have an Ohio State offer, that still means a whole lot. So I'm not saying that at all. But Locklyn's different in great ways. He was different when the way that he got the best out of Travion Henderson last year, and he found a way to work in Judkins and Henderson together at Ohio State. He was elite there. He's an elite recruiter. I mean, he's great in so many different aspects. But one of the things you want as a recruiter is the ability to create a relationship with a young man and sustain said relationship. That was one of the reasons, and we're going to keep doing this all offseason because it's a great, just one of the little dots on Lockland's history as a coach to just show that he is an elite recruiter. Turbo Rogers was committed to Alabama for months, possibly over a year. I don't know the exact date of his original verbal commitment to Alabama, but I realized that once Locklyn got in there and started to create a relationship and sustain it and just continue to do what is needed to keep a kid interested and to keep him inclined to be someone that's paying so close attention to what you're saying that you're thinking, oh, we got him. We got this in the bag. All of a sudden, late in the cycle, maybe even been on signing day, Turbo Rogers flips from Alabama to Ohio State. Now, it's not just significant because of the school that he flipped from and being Alabama. He's a Southern kid. So if you're getting a Southern kid to ditch Alabama, which is still the premier school down there in the South, to go to Ohio State, that speaks volumes about you as a recruiter, but also about what that young man is as a human and as a player. Players want to play for coaches they trust. Yes, the emblem, the Blocko on my hat, that speaks a lot. The symbols around college football, from the A and the G and the N and some Northwestern. I mean, there's so many different schools out there. When you look at a symbol, you know what they stand for. I think at Northwestern, I think a really smart school overall, and a football team full of geniuses. I think at Alabama, a football factory, Georgia, a football factory, Ohio State, a football factory, and they're also the reigning national champion. Those are the things that I think about when I look at those symbols. That doesn't mean that the coach that's going to be there, the coach that's recruiting me, is the right guy for me. And Locklyn's going after a guy that he believes, when that young man's a senior, going into his freshman year, will continue to be the guy that Locklyn wants. You don't offer a kid this young without thinking he is the real deal. Maybe you want to do it just to get out in front of everybody. Great. He's a Cali kid, so the Hawaii and the Arizona State things, that makes a lot of sense. But when you add in Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Ohio State, they're nowhere close to California. That just speaks volumes about a lot of schools out there trying to do what Locklyn's trying to do. Get ahead of the game and to stay in hot pursuit of Makai Buchanan. While he is young, he's not your typical 8th grade running back. And as he develops, I continue to believe Locklyn is going to continue that relationship with Buchanan and have a chance to land him at the end of the day. I say have a chance because no one truly knows what's going to happen with Makai Buchanan over the next few years in his life, which is why there are pros and cons to recruiting such a young athlete. This episode is brought to you by Fabric by Gerber Life. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. As a parent, I want to make sure my family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives me that peace of mind. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and keeps every game exciting. This week, I'm looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Davis for more than 12 rebounds. I love how I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. When I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you all for tapping into this bonus episode of Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen today. Remember, I hand edit all the time. Every now and then there's going to be a bonus episode. You want to make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Buckeyes and hit that notification button so you get alerted every time a new show goes live. Speaking of going live, Carlos Lockland has already gone live and trying to pursue elite running backs in the class of 2029. I believe, and it's hard to really track the offers that Ohio State's handed out in that class because the recruiting databases in On3 and 247 and the others, they don't really track guys that young because information is sometimes hard to come by and sometimes people lie. So there's a lot of stuff out there that you can find on Buchanan. I say a lot for a guy that's that young. There's not much on the typical guy that's a junior or a senior in high school. But for Buchanan, I mentioned his age because it's very important. He's an 8th grader. Hasn't even touched the high school hallways yet. And for this young man out in California who's at Winter Circle Prep and who's on the OG Ducks, there's a lot of good things as far as team affiliation and being able to play in the Under Armour Next Generation 8th grade All-American game that say, oh, he's going to be that guy. But I'll make a statement once again because it's true. He's an 8th grader. No one knows what's going to happen when he gets into high school. Absolutely not. You may take a gamble to go out there and to recruit him and to pursue him, and all of a sudden you may win. Ultimately, Alabama and Georgia and USC and UCLA and Oregon and name the big-time school in the country is going to go out there and try Texas, Oklahoma. They're all going to try to go out there and lure Buchanan to their school, just like Ohio State is. Even if you're one of the first ones out there, that doesn't mean you're going to land him because he's in 8th grade. It's possible that everything works out in Locklyn's favor and him getting out there early, and let's just say Locklyn does stay at Ohio State throughout the next 10 years. It's probably not highly unlikely that Locklyn stays at Ohio State for the next 10 years. But if it happens, and if he wins on the Makai Buchanan sweepstakes, if everything happens like people think it might, cool, Ohio State got a guy. They got in there early when he was in 8th grade, and boom, they found a gem. He could be 210, 215, about 6'2", and be rock solid and be like, oh, okay, we got in here early. You had the skill set. If you want to, seriously, if you want to go out there on social media or really internet, just type in Makai Buchanan and look at videos. I found a couple, him doing some drills around bags and switching hands when going between the hole, and saw some clips from the All-American game he played in. And everything I saw proved that Locklyn might be on to something. Now, if Locklyn's on to something, that's great, but I want to see with my eyes too. I mean, coaches are ahead of the game, but our eyeballs also tell us a lot. We need to trust our eyes. It's possible. There's a large possibility that this young man gets to high school, continues to progress, continues to love the game, continues to play both sides of the ball. He also plays free safety, and he has him on his Twitter page. He's a receiver as well. He runs routes like a guy that's not an 8th grader. I mean, nothing about him when I look at him play screams 8th grader. It just doesn't happen. There's also the possibility, I don't mean to be negative, that maybe he doesn't come to Ohio State. Maybe he decides to go somewhere else to play football, or maybe the unthinkable happens and he decides not to play football in college. Maybe he falls in love with another sport. It's possible. When you are that young, it's very, very hard to predict what's going to happen. When I was in 8th grade, I remember myself in 8th grade. I wanted to get out of Belgium Middle School and go across the street to Lawrence Central High School. I remember that, man. And 8th grade was fun. We cut up, we joked around, had some fun, and did all the things an 8th grader does. But the person I was in 8th grade, even in the last semester of 8th grade, wasn't the person I was when I was playing freshman football across the street at Lawrence Central. It wasn't the person that I was my junior or senior year of high school. Physically, I wasn't the same person either. Started to touch the weights after my 8th grade season of playing football, and started to get a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger and get more prepared for football in high school. And I wasn't the same person. Individually, mentally, I wasn't the same person. Puberty, I was done with that. There are so many things about you as a person, physically and mentally and emotionally and developmentally, that are different from 8th grade all the way up through high school. So yeah, it would be great. It would be nice if the pro of getting in on a guy early works out for Locklyn and you get him. But also there's a possibility that it doesn't, or that when he gets older, he plays football in college and he turns out to not be the right guy for the type of talent you want in your room. That's possible. Not saying there's a wrong scenario here, but that's just the reality that this young man's good now. Nobody knows what's going to happen as freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior years of high school. Nobody knows. Thank y'all for tapping into this bonus episode of Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Football Podcast, because my guy, Spencer McLaughlin, is the guy that keeps you up to date on every change going on in the sport. There's conversations being had right now about possible rule changes. You all know the portal's going to open up soon. Spring ball's going to open up. NIL in that circuit never stops. And Spencer McLaughlin is a guy to keep you up to date on everything going on in the sport. Find Locked On Buckeyes and Locked On College Football on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. Thank you for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes on a Saturday. Almost lost my train of thought. We'll see you next time.